Hello there, and welcome to the Latin Explosion Show with me, DJ Tuli, on Colorful Radio. And on tonight's show, I'm really delighted to confirm that we have none other than amazing artist Tito Rodriguez Jr. Tito, thank you so much for agreeing to speak to us this evening. How are you?
It's an honor and a pleasure to be able to do this with you on your show, and so I'm excited about it.
Well,
It'll be
the,
great.
the pleasure and the honor is absolutely ours. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Obviously, your name gives it away a little bit. The son of also an absolute legend who was Tito Rodriguez Sr. And we're going to talk a little bit about yourself. But first of all, why not talk about the legend that was your dad, of course?
Absolutely.
So, your dad was part of one of the big three bands back in the days, mambo days in the 50s. So, you want to tell us a little bit about how was it for you being the son of such a legend?
Well, when he was in that era, I mean, I was very very young. I was like 6 or 7, 5, 6, 7, 8. But what's really cool about that is that as a child, I have always been around this music. We lived in Little Neck, New York, and we had a finished basement there. And I witnessed many rehearsals that my father used to have.
All right.
That they would rehearse the repertoire that they were going to do at the Palladium. And I even got to go to the Palladium when I was like in 7th or 8th grade. If I was off school, I would always pal around with my father because he would schedule a rehearsal on Wednesdays because that was the day that the musicians got paid. Back then, musicians were paid weekly. They weren't
Uh-huh.
paid, by the gig. And so actually the three leaders would coordinate like that. They would figure out, okay, payday's Wednesday, maybe we can kill two birds with one stone, have a rehearsal. And they would rehearse, my father would rehearse at the Palladium or at the famous Roseland Ballroom. And I got to witness that. I mean, now I realize I was witnessing history, but back then
Wow.
I had a great time. I knew I enjoyed the music. I mean, there was something about it that I always loved to hear Dad rehearse. And the rest is history. I mean, that was an incredible era that the three men created
Wow.
this mambo movement,
Yes.
and I believe they battled it out at the Palladium for over 14 years. I
Yes. Yeah.
mean, and it's
Wow.
an era that will never ever be duplicated.
Right. And speaking of battling it out, I know that we all know about the rivalry that there was between the two Titos. So how
Correct.
much do you know about that rivalry?
Well, it was basically, they both started out together in the Jose Cabello Orchestra, and in the early days, I mean, they were friends, and in fact, Tito Puente did, I believe, 2 or 3 arrangements for my father when they were in the Corbello.
Right.
He did one of them was Mango del Monte, which my dad ended up recording later on. But they were in the band together, and both started getting popular. They both were getting recording contracts with Tico, with RCA, and then
Right.
eventually my father ended up going to United Artists Records and was getting, he had Well La Paloma. He was getting hits. And it came to a point where, there was a top billing issue. He felt that he deserved top billing. Tito Puente felt he deserved it. And they could never come to an agreement on that. I mean, it got to the point where a promoter said, well, listen, I know you guys both want to be on the top line. Why don't we put your names on the same line? And then it became an issue. Well, whose name's going to go first on the same line?
Oh
And
my God.
yeah, it was, look, it was a fierce rivalry, but the winners are, I believe, were the listening public and the dancers because those bands strive to outdo each other, and it really raised the musical bar.
Absolutely.
And so it's all good.
Fantastic. And I believe in the Palladium times, that's when your mom and dad met. And I believe your mom is also, she was a singer, right?
Yeah, my mom was a singer, chorus girl model at the China Doll, which was a club that was a couple of blocks away from the Palladium. And it was actually opened up a little later at night than the Palladium. So a lot of musicians would go over there and hang out, and that's how they met.
Wow. And your heritage. So your dad was Puerto Rican descent, and your
Cuban.
mom.
He's Puerto Rican Cuban.
All right.
Right. And my mother was Japanese, so I'm Puerto Rican, Cuban, Japanese.
Amazing mixture. And that, but did you ever go to Japan or lived in Japan at all?
No,
Learn the Japanese?
no, I never did. I never have been to Japan. That's one place I really need to get to. But no, I never went. And my mother spoke Japanese and English, and she never spoke Spanish. Japanese was in the home.
Really?
Yeah. And I really regret that too. I mean, that would have been great to learn Japanese.
Wow. And so now you became a musician yourself. So was there any influence, obviously, from growing up with both your parents being musicians? You always wanted to be a musician. Did you ever want, I mean, your dad was primarily a singer. Did you ever want to be a singer? Or
No, you know what? No, I never gravitated to singing. Actually, my father was an excellent percussionist in his own right. And when I was small, when I was younger, like I started playing drums in the basement, conventional drum set when I was 8 or 9. And so I always knew I liked the drums. And then, we always had Latin percussion in the house. And one time I picked up the bongos. And that's when he started to teach me the Afro-Cuban rhythms, how to play the different movements on the drums and explain to me how, when you play the pila, when you play the bell, and all intricacies of Latin rhythms. He was my teacher. And at that time when I was young, I didn't really know I wanted to be a musician, but I knew that I loved the music. It wasn't until my teens that I got the bug.
right.
And then, I went to him, and he always afforded me private lessons because he was very strict about education. And when I decided that I wanted to do music full time, then he gave me the opportunity to do it because he was very proud that I wanted to do that. But he never pushed me into doing it. It's a decision that I had made. And with private lessons, I decided to study at Berklee College of Music in Boston for 2 years. And then I got a degree in music at the University of Miami and finished up there because I couldn't take the cold weather because I was a tropical. I was always born. I was in the Caribbean, and then we moved to Miami, and that cold situation was like, forget it.
My goodness. And you also lived, I believe, you lived in Puerto Rico for a while as well.
Yeah, we moved. I lived in Little Neck, New York until 1967. Then we moved to Puerto Rico, and we lived there till 71. And my dad built a Japanese-style pagoda home in Ocean Park, Puerto Rico, which Gilberto Santa Rosa bought.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he has offices there, and
wow.
But yeah, we were in Puerto Rico for like 4 years, not too long, but it was cool. It was cool. And then he had his television show there, and that was when I really got hooked because I got to see famous arrangers like Rene Hernandez, Ray Santos. These were the top arrangers from that era.
Wow.
And my father brought them down from New York. He hired them as staff arrangers for his television show.
Wow.
So they would, film from Wednesday to Friday. They would have a large orchestra playing live because my father did not believe in using soundtracks. Everything had his show. He wanted everyone to perform live. And it was an interesting concept because it didn't matter. Like let's say if you were a singer and he hired you to be on the show and you only had like maybe 6 pieces, he would ask that performer, well, tell me the songs that you want to sing and have them arranged for that performer with an 18-piece orchestra so that everything remained consistent musically on the show. My father was a perfectionist. Everything that he did.
You can see, and that's that is also showing as well on the music that you're producing nowadays as well.
Oh yeah, I learned a lot from him. I learned, not only that I learned about how to play from him, I learned about the music business from him, and I learned, I picked up his ear. I mean, he had a great musical ear, and I would hope that I that I picked that up, and I kind of model myself after him as far as the sound of the band, but my sound's a little bit different.
Right.
But the technical approach to the way I record is, it's modeled after him, and that is to try to be a perfectionist.
And your dad, he had a record label, right?
Yes, TR Records, right.
TR Records. And sorry.
No, it was formed in 1971, correct.
71. And was that as a result of, I know that he had some issues with the record label back then.
Well, no, basically, yeah, like anyone else, there was always issues with record labels and collecting their royalties and everything. But basically, all the years that my father recorded with United Artists, he was basically producing a majority of that music, and a lot of the credit was going to another gentleman. And he had enough with that and decided that, I'm going to do my own thing. And then he went from United Artists, he went to Musicor Records and had some hits on Musicor. And then we went to Puerto Rico, and then he ended up going back to United Artists again on his own terms.
Right.
And then he formed TR Records. He always wanted to have his own label, and he was able to do that in 1971.
And that record label is still going, right?
No, that record label was sold in the 80s. Yeah, it didn't. It only lasted till about, I believe, I don't know, the mid 80s, from 71 to the mid 80s. He was partners with my brother-in-law at the time, and he ended up. When my father passed away, they ended up keeping it going, and I think it was something like 176 albums. It was the largest. It was the second largest independent Latin label. Fania was number one.
My goodness.
Yes, and my father's label was the second largest.
And how many albums did your dad do?
78.
78 albums.
Yeah, which was a lot of albums. I mean, he died at age 50. So, it was very different back then. Now, artists record, one album maybe once every 2-3 years. Back then they were cranking out 3-4 albums a year because they didn't have the way to promote that they do now with the internet and everything. So they had to keep it fresh. So they were constantly recording.
Turning out albums year on year.
Right.
Incredible. My God, that is an extensive number of albums.
Oh yeah, it's a lot, and it's a lot of music I have.
Yes, and so are you still discovering stuff? Is it?
Yeah, I mean, I mean, there's always something, There's when I record, I always try to do at least one tune that my father recorded, but with a new arrangement. I want to keep it fresh.
Right.
I love playing my father's music, but I've always wanted to do my own music, and so it's interesting because I can do my own music. I can pay homage to him by doing one that he did with a new arrangement, and then when I perform live, obviously there's a segment where I'll pick maybe 5 or 6 tunes that he did and go back to that Palladium era and along with my music. And it's a nice even balance. The people really love to hear it and they dance and it's great.
Fantastic. And you as a musician, your first album, which was Curious, that was 75.
Correct. With Jose Alberto, he was right. I'm not sure he was El Canario back then. I know it's Jose Alberto. I think the Canario came afterwards, but and then I had Ruben Blades and Alberto Santiago on the background vocals. And the interesting story with that album was I really wasn't into doing that album.
Oh my God.
Yeah. That album was basically. When my father had passed away,
73.
Then it came up like, maybe we should try and experiment and come out, why don't you do an album? And I said, okay. And at that time, I was called Tito Rodriguez II.
The second.
Yeah, if you look at the album, it says the second. Which I never liked either, but that's a whole other story.
Quite royal.
And I got some great writers. I got Johnny Ortiz, Mayo Flores, Ruben Blades gave me 2 songs. Oye Mi Song and Se Comienza por el Uno are Ruben's tunes. He was with Fania at the time.
Wow.
And so he was very helpful with that. And it basically was an experiment, and that's why the album is called Curious. You know, are you curious? And we didn't. I think if I did, by the way, the album sold unbelievable.
Yes,
Uh,
yes.
yeah, it's still selling. It sold well then, and if I did 5 performances off that album, it might have been a lot. We
Wow.
Yeah, I only performed with Jose Alberto 2 times.
Amazing. And is it true that this was Jose Alberto's first appearance as a singer?
It was the first time he ever recorded in the United States.
All
Right,
right, all right. Amazing.
right.
And then that in was it in Africa that it sold like in excess of 50,000 copies
Yeah, it did.
one album.
Yeah, I mean, recently, well, about 8 months ago, I whipped out Se Comienza por el Uno.
Right.
I said, you know what? Because I'm telling you, I very rarely perform any music from that album.
Wow.
Any, and I said, you know what? Let me get the cobwebs off the arrangement. So I went here in my bin, and I got it out. And we played it, and everybody was crazy to hear it. So I think in the future, what I'm going to do is to start to perform more of those
Catalog.
tunes. And I even ran into Canario recently, and I said, hey, maybe we should do a reunion concert or something with those tunes, And he laughed. He goes, yeah, who knows?
Well,
Who
you
knows?
never know. You never know. Why not?
Yeah, yeah, right.
Amazing.
And I mean, and the arrangements sound pretty good. I mean, I had really good arrangers on that album, but it was just a timing thing. I don't think I was musically mature yet, and
Right,
wasn't really sure what direction I wanted to go
right.
with that. And so I went along with it, and the rest is history with that.
Hey, Tito, so tell us a little bit about, let's talk about the Eclipse album, which was launched in 1994.
It was recorded in 94 in New Jersey. There's actually like a backline to that recording, too. The first day of recording, we drove out to New Jersey in an 8-inch snowstorm. And I had Ray Santos in the car with me and a couple other musicians. And we had to drive out to New Jersey. It was a horrible snowstorm.
Wow.
And so basically what happened was, we did the rhythm section first on that recording. And because of the time of year, it was in February, we had a lot of snowstorms. So the production got delayed. And so Eclipse originally was supposed to be 10 numbers, but it only ended up being 9. So I held one number back. So when I do the reissue on vinyl, I'm going to release the song that I held back because we didn't have time. The record company at the time was pushing me, we got to get this released. So I had to omit the 10th tune. So what I'm really excited about is when I come out with the vinyl, it's going to have a bonus cut.
Fantastic, because that was one of the questions that I was being asked is when is the re-release of Eclipse coming out?
The re-release, we already started. We're transferring the original. We have 4 2-inch Ampex tapes. And so we're transferring them to Pro Tools because we want to remix and master. I didn't just want to take the same master and go vinyl. I wanted to remix it with today's technology, And so that's what's taking so long. And then this COVID thing happened.
Yeah.
And so everything's on hold right now. And everybody's asking me, like, when is it going to come out? When is it going to? It's going to come out for sure. I don't know whether I'm going to re-release it on CD. That
Right.
remains. I don't know. And it also depends on how many people are interested in vinyl. It's very tricky. Vinyl's expensive. So if I can get some feedback, I'll probably put up an email, a specific email like I did for Transición, to find out what the interest would be in purchasing the vinyl. And then I can more or less adjust how many to order. So anyway, it's in the plans. And like I said, everything got delayed.
Right. So with regards, one of the most famous tracks from Eclipse is the crowd pleaser, which is Mujer Erótica.
Right.
What the composer for that track, was that Sammy Gonzalez?
Sammy Gonzalez Jr., right? He composed that tune in Acuérdate. And he's an unbelievable writer. He's been with me, like I said, over 20 years.
Wow.
And Yeah, he wrote that song, and it was a major hit. I mean, that's what really put Eclipse on the map as far as the United States went, and it continues to be a favorite in the congresses all over the world. I mean,
And
that CD is. I mean, actually.
yeah, absolutely. It's a very popular album. And so has Sammy said, told you the story behind the track?
He did that. He basically wrote that about it's about his wife. You know,
Right.
he went to Puerto Rico. He was on the beach, and all these thoughts came into his mind, and that's basically the back line to that. He decided to jot it down on paper, and that's why he came up with the Mujer Erótica, which was an extraordinary woman who was different in many different ways, and that was the message that he was trying to get out with that tune.
Right. When you re-release the vinyl of Eclipse, in addition to the bonus track, are you going to change anything?
No, nothing is going to be changed
Right.
at all. No, maybe I don't know. We've contemplated changing the trumpet solo on Mujer Erótica and using Louis Dowdeswell, who the suits from London, as we talked
Right.
about.
Yeah.
And so that is a possibility that would be changed, but nothing else needs to be changed. There's first class players on there. You know, the likes of Oscar Hernandez, Eddie Montalvo,
Yes.
Tommy Chucky Lopez. So there's nothing that really needs to be changed.
Absolutely. And that timeline, more or less, you reckon end of this year?
Yeah, I would say the end of this year. Yeah, I mean, as soon as we can get rid of this virus, whenever that's going to be.
Yeah.
You know, everything's shut down. It's a problem.
Yeah. Yeah. So, well, fingers crossed, we're going to have that vinyl
Right.
very soon.
It's going to come out, definitely. Don't worry, it's coming.
Awesome.
It's
And
funny.
then another album that you did was the Big Three Palladium, right? When
Yeah,
did that come out?
well, that came out in 2004, I think. But before that, I did
Eclipse.
Eclipse, right? There was like a 20-year gap between Curious
And
and
Eclipse.
yeah, it was quite a
Wow.
while.
So what were
I
you
think
doing between all those 20 years of no
oh,
music?
I was playing tennis professionally.
Really? Oh, wow.
Yeah, and then I just got to the point where my mom was bankrolling that whole deal, and I was making money but breaking even, and it was like need to get back into music. So anyway, moving forward, I got this was when the Mambo Kings movie came out,
Oh,
and
yes.
yeah, and it was like in the 93, 92, 93.
Uh-huh.
And a gentleman approached me and he said, "Hey, listen, we'd like for you to record again. And we'd like to, nobody's playing your father's music. We'd like you to start doing that again." And I said, "I don't have a problem, doing that." And I said, "But I really would like to record again. So if you want me to do that, I'm going to need a record deal.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to do my own thing." So that's how Eclipse came about. And then Mario's son, Machito, son,
Mm-hmm.
he calls me up and he says, "Listen, I have this." He says, "I have this crazy idea. I'd like to form this band and do the music of the Three Masters, the Big Three." And he says, "I have an unbelievable agent in London. Brian Theobald was his name, and he was a big band enthusiast. He was with BPR Music, and they used to book the Dizzy Gillespie Big Band, Buddy Rich. So he was like the guy." If anybody was going to get us booked around the world, it was going to be him. So we set up a meeting, and they gave me the concept. And at the time, the band was 21 pieces. It was the concept that they wanted to come with. Yeah, it was like, trombones, full sax section. And I was rather pessimistic about it because I was like, how does this work? How do we move a band? So we started out with the 21, and then it eventually whittled down to 18. But boy, we opened up. We did a couple of very big jazz festivals here in New York, Philly. We did the Hollywood Bowl.
Oh, wow.
And then we got an engagement at the Blue Note.
Yes.
And
That's the where it was recorded, right?
yeah, and Concord Records was gonna be the record company with that, but then the night that we were to start recording, they pulled the plug on it, and so I said, well, let's fund it. We don't need them to do it. Let's fund it. So we got the mobile unit in, and we were there a week. And the way we did it was we recorded the last 3 shows, and then we picked the best. That's how we did it. But that's a totally live performance with that orchestra. And we were happy because we would start Tuesday and then Sunday, and we were doing 2 shows a night. So the band was really tight.
Wow.
And that's why we decided to record, Friday and Saturday, 4 shows. And I hired John Fausti, the engineer that did all the engineering. He was the engineer for Fania Records, because John knows how to record Latin percussion. It's very tricky to captivate that sound.
Wow.
And John Fausti is a master at it. And we brought the mobile truck in, and he had something like 30 or 40 mics on stage. It was insane.
Wow.
And that was an unbelievable experience. And we traveled. I mean, we went as far as Istanbul, Turkey.
And you
Finland.
came to London. I was there at that concert.
At the Barbican, right, with Larry Harlow. Oh, it was amazing.
Yes, and I've actually got the ticket as well for the Barbican 2010 and the program. Latin Music USA, the Big Three Palladium Orchestra.
And you know what? You guys got gypped on that, because the group that opened up for us played too long.
Really? I don't remember.
Yeah, because if you remember, Mario did the last set of that performance and only could do 2 numbers.
Really? Oh my God, I was so excited. It actually was on my birthday. That was the day of my birthday, and a group of us went, and I had an amazing time.
I'm glad. It was an amazing experience for us. I mean, we couldn't believe the enthusiasm. It was so cool, because the first time it ever happened, when we never experienced the band walking out and getting an applause before we even played a note.
Standing ovation even before.
That really sets the mood for the night. And I'll never forget that. It was unbelievable.
The energy was palpable, and that was televised by the BBC as well.
Right. The BBC got it right, because that documentary aired on the public broadcast system here in the United States, and nobody did a concert to follow that up, but the BBC did, and they were very smart to do that.
Yeah. No, it was amazing.
That's history now.
History, yes, absolutely. I mean, you had Larry Harlow in there, and Jimmy Bosch, and then you had Silencia as well, played at the end of the concert.
Right. No, they started.
The ones that played first.
And that they ran over.
Right. So it was Silencia who played first. Yeah.
Right, because they said that. I don't know, the tube only runs a certain time at night, and people wouldn't be able to get home. Is that true? That's what they.
No. That venue is very strict with the end times of their concert.
Right. Well, we had a great time. I'll never forget that.
But none of us noticed. We just had a great time with you guys, everybody.
I'm glad.
So unforgettable. So I had to show you that, because I still had that with me.
I've never seen that. I'm glad you did.
Yeah, it's got your picture inside as well, and the whole story by Machito. I can send you a picture of it later.
Okay, great.
Talks about Machito and the decision for him to then get you guys together and five Big Three. So
it was totally his idea. And I'm glad he asked me to be a part of it, because we traveled all over we lasted 10 years with that group.
Wow.
Yeah.
Incredible.
His whole thing was, let's do one gig.
Yes. And he went on for 10 years.
It lasted 10 years, and we traveled all over the world.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So what was doing now? Are you still in touch with? Oh, sorry, Machito Jr.
Yeah,
Is he still?
he's like a brother to me. I speak to him almost every other day, and
Oh, great.
yeah, we keep in touch. We're very, very close, and it's great. Yeah.
That's wonderful.
And then, he has the Machito Orchestra, so he does his own thing. We kind of split, after a while, we just wanted to do our own thing. And so he
Yeah.
had, he does the Machito Orchestra, and I was doing my thing, and it's great. But yeah, we're like family.
Oh, that's lovely. That's wonderful.
Right.
And that you have all those memories, and also that you still kept that alive.
Yeah, and at the end, before
parents.
my father passed away, he was using the Machito Orchestra to back him.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because when my father broke his band up, he didn't want the headache of having a band anymore. He became a soloist.
Right, right.
So when he was up in New York, and he had the record company, and a lot of promoters were, wow, you're back in New York. He says, well, sort of, and so they took the opportunity to book performances for him, and he used the Machito Orchestra. There's quite the trajectory with Machito, and even with me with the son. So
That's great.
yeah.
That's amazing. And now with your last album, is your last album Transition?
Transición, right? And I got very proud of that album. To me, that's the best musically I've done, in my opinion. Other people might say Eclipse was, but yeah, I was very, very proud of that album. And had Gilberto Santa Rosa on it. And
say Volver, right? That
Volver, right, written and composed by Johnny Vega. And how fitting is that song right now to be able to come back to play before everyone again?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't written.
I
didn't have a premonition that this was going to happen, but everybody's saying, they'll listen to the song now and they can, they're like, wow, there's a message here, and then Transición. I mean, we're certainly in a transitional period, aren't we?
Yeah.
Politically and pandemic wise, and so everything worked out for a reason. When I got Gilberto to do that song, he was not supposed to be. There wasn't a plan. He wasn't in the plan. And Pablo Chino Núñez was the producer of that. And when he got the tune and was arranging it, he called me up and he said, "I'm hearing Gilberto on this tune. Is there any way that you could call him to see if he would consider doing it?" And I said, yeah, he's like a brother too. So I said, I'll call him. There's no guarantee, but so I sent him the tune, and he liked it, and he agreed to do it. And the ironic thing is that he recorded it a week before Hurricane Maria devastated that island. So we were very lucky to be able to get his voice on that track.
Wow.
Because the island was devastated.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, and so everything worked out. The album did very well. I had the honor and the pleasure of having Lewis Dowdeswell from London.
Excellent.
We had some tracks done. He did all the trumpet tracks in London in his studio, and he's going to be on the next album. We're getting ready as soon as the pandemic eases up and start planning the next album.
Right. Before we move into the next album, something I wanted to mention was with regards to the cover of Transition, which I thought was so beautiful, which is the photograph is kind of like a tribute to your background.
My better half, Joyce Michelle, is she took that photograph. She's an unbelievable photographer. She built my website. She travels all over the world with me, and she's just very talented photographer. And we shot that. We got lighting in my living room.
Wow.
And she's really good at getting different effects, and we wanted something different than just standing behind a Timbales set like we've all seen, boring. So we were playing around with movement, and we were kind of getting the effect, but it wasn't really what we wanted, and we were trying to figure out. So I would basically do this, and it would kind of come out, but it wouldn't. So this was hours and hours and hours. So we got that effect by me doing this.
Right. So
instead of doing this, we did this, and that created the whip
the
fan.
back movement of the stick.
Right. And we decided that that is a tribute to my parents because both cultures, the Hispanic culture and the Asian culture, use fans
Hands,
to
yeah.
cool off. So yeah. So
When I saw that, I thought it was so cool, and what a way to to give a tribute to your parents.
right. Well, she's brilliant at what she does, and so any idea she comes
Tito
up with,
Very
I go.
nice, very nice cover
Thank you.
for the album.
Thanks. Thank you.
Yes, gorgeous. And now, mentioning the timbales, I did
Yeah.
see an interview where you actually played Tito Puente.
Oh, that was for the Sally Jesse
Yeah,
Raphael show. Yeah, it was a tribute to the Sally Jesse Raphael is my godmother.
really? Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I know when I was in Sally Jesse used to live in Puerto Rico and she had a radio show
Right.
back then, and we, our families became very good friends at the time, and then she ended up being my godmother, and then she came up to the United States and had that syndicated television show, the Sally Jesse Raphael show, and she approached me and said, "Hey, I want to do this mambo show with Rita Moreno and Daisy Fuentes and Tito Puente and I think what's his name, the dancer,
And
Eddie Torres, Eddie Torres.
wow.
And that was a lot of fun. That was a lot of fun, and I got to, I've always Tito Puente has always been a sweetheart
Great.
with me. Whenever I would run into him, it's very cordial, give me a big hug and everything.
Oh, nice.
And so it was really cool to be on the show with him. And it was cool because when we were playing, he said, "Hey, listen, just go and do your thing. This is your moment." And he was very, very cool to allow me to play.
That's
I really appreciated that he let me do that. Yeah.
Right. Oh, that was nice. And also, Tito Puente has a son, Tito Puente Jr.
Sure.
And
Sure.
you are connected with him as well?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I don't talk to him every day, and he was with the Big Three for a short period, and then he decided he wanted to do other things. So Mario and I, continued to the Big Three Palladium Orchestra, but without Tito Puente Jr. But yeah, I run. Every now and then we'll end up doing something, and I keep in touch with them, whether it's through a Facebook message or a phone call or anything. But yeah.
Oh, great.
And his brother Ronnie too. I keep in touch with.
Great. I saw recently you published a picture where you both were at the same event and you realized that you had the same pinky ring.
Yeah, that was at the NAMM show. We went to it's. Are you familiar with the NAMM show? It's the largest musical instrument show in the world.
Oh, wow.
And it's every year in Anaheim, California. And everybody who is anybody and every musical instrument made has a booth. It's amazing. It's like 3 floors of musical ecstasy. and you have any kind of musical instrument. You have artists coming in and jamming and everything. And so I ran into Tito. The Toca percussion booth was right next to the L people, and I ran into him. I don't know, we're talking, and he looks and he goes, "Oh, look at that," and he shows me his, and I go, "Look at it," and then we were like taking the photograph, and he said they must have gone to the same jeweler because it was almost like identical, the design.
I saw the picture.
Yeah, it was like TP and TR, so we had a real good laugh over that one. Yeah.
Amazing. What an anecdote. That's great.
I know, it's just pretty amazing.
Oh, imagine that. Now, Tito, so what are the plans for the future in terms, you have an album coming out soon or?
We're going to be working on an album. I'm in the middle of writing a book.
Excellent.
About my childhood growing up in the Tito Rodriguez. And hopefully, miniseries will come out of that. And we're planning a lot of things for his. In 3 years will be his 100th birthday. So we have big plans.
1923, of course. Yeah.
Well, we have some big plans for that. So I'm busy, believe me. I keep
Wow.
busy. I keep busy, and so I'm gonna keep it going. Got to keep the momentum. Look, if you're not appearing, you're disappearing, right? So
Absolutely.
we don't want to do that.
Absolutely. So that's great. You know, you need to keep the legacy of your dad alive as well.
Yeah, absolutely,
So
absolutely.
you're working as well on potentially a movie on your dad's name?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We've been working on that for 17 years.
Wow.
Yeah, but we've had many different drafts done and everything. But I said, you know what? It needs to come from me.
Right.
I should be the one that should be writing the book. And so that's where we are right now. We're working on that diligently.
Excellent. Excellent. Please come and see us again when it's ready and tell us all about it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So there's exciting things coming for sure.
Oh, that's fantastic.
You just got to get rid of this pandemic. It's got to go away.
Oh,
It's
yes. Yes.
cramping our style.
Honestly, it's just like 2020. I just can't wait to see 2021. Just move on to 2021.
I'm telling you, it's been a long road.
Yes, yes. But Tito, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us.
No, listen, thank you, Julie, for having me on your show. And I just want to take this time to thank all my followers, fans that have been supporting my father's music and my music for all these years. It's like I feel very blessed.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Tito. And yes, so please, this is Colorful Radio is your home. So whenever you want to come back and talk to us about any new projects that you have, please come and do so.
It would be my pleasure. And thank you for taking the time to interview me.